Have you ever noticed how some moments in life feel impossible? Like the universe just winked at you, dropped a message in your path, and left you wondering if it's coincidence, or if something far stranger is at play. Maybe you've bumped into the exact person you needed to meet, right when you needed guidance, or stumbled onto an opportunity that seemed perfectly timed. These moments are often dismissed as luck, chance, or pure randomness, but what if they weren't? What if there's an invisible current running through reality, one that responds to your attention, your choices, even your thoughts, and you've been swimming in it all along without realizing? Here's the thing, modern science and our everyday culture rarely teach us this. We are trained to see the world as rigid, fixed, something we react to rather than co-create with. And yet, the laws of quantum physics tell a different story, a story that hints at something breathtaking. That reality is not just something that happens to us, but something that is, in part, created by us. Take the double-slit experiment, for instance. Physicists fire particles, tiny building blocks of matter, through two slits, expecting them to behave like bullets and hit a screen in two neat lines. But instead, they form a pattern of waves, an interference pattern, as if the particles knew they could go through both slits at once. And here's the twist. The moment someone observes which slit a particle goes through, the pattern changes. The particle decides to behave like a particle again, as if the act of observation itself alters reality. In other words, consciousness, the act of noticing, paying attention, is not separate from the material world. It shapes it. Now, this doesn't mean you can magically wish $1 million into existence tomorrow, or teleport to Mars. But it does suggest something far more practical and profound. The way you focus your mind, the attention you give to certain possibilities, actually influences the world you experience. Your consciousness is not just a passenger in life, it's an engine that interacts with reality itself. And here's where it gets even more interesting. For thousands of years, mystics, shamans, and sages have been hinting at this truth in their own way. They talked about alignment, attunement, and oneness, describing states where life seems to move effortlessly, where the right people, events, and opportunities appear at the right moment. Modern science calls this quantum entanglement, observer effect, or wave function collapse. The language differs, but the underlying principle is strikingly similar. Attention matters, intention matters, and we are far more participatory in the unfolding of our lives than most of us realize. But here's the catch. This knowledge has largely been suppressed. Not by accident, but because a world that rewards conformity and control doesn't want you realizing your own power. If people truly understood that their thoughts and focus shape reality, the entire system of authority, expectation, and distraction would have less hold over them. That's why the idea of conscious reality creation is often treated like a mystical fringe belief rather than mainstream science. And that's exactly why it's so exciting for those willing to explore it. So, how does this translate into real life? How do you move from abstract theory to tangible practice without falling into wishful thinking? The first step is simple but rarely done. Pay attention to your attention. Notice where your mind drifts, what ideas you repeatedly entertain, and which thoughts feel heavy versus which feel expansive. Quantum physics suggests that these mental observations are not trivial. They are actively shaping the probabilities of your reality. Start small. Pick one area of your life, a relationship, a creative project, or even your own daily mood, and direct focused, deliberate attention toward it. Notice the tiny opportunities, the small coincidences that appear. Instead of shrugging them off as luck, pause and ask, what is this trying to show me? Record it, reflect on it, and begin to see patterns emerge. You are, in effect, practicing a form of conscious observation that subtly guides reality toward coherence with your intentions. Here's an example. Imagine a writer struggling to finish a book. They sit down with intention, not just to work, but to notice what ideas feel alive, what sentences feel right, and what parts of the story resonate most. They allow their attention to linger on those sparks, rather than forcing progress mechanically. Over time, the book seems to write itself, not because of magic, but because attention and intention have guided the unfolding possibilities in the most aligned direction. The world, or the writer's own creative reality, responds to the observer who knows where to look. And humorously enough, it's not about controlling everything. You don't need to micromanage the universe like a cosmic drill sergeant. Life is delightfully unpredictable, and trying to force it will only frustrate you. The skill is in alignment, in noticing where energy naturally flows, and gently steering your focus, like adjusting the sails of a boat rather than building a dam. You can think of it as becoming an expert navigator of your own probability landscape. This is where synchronicity enters the scene, not as a mystical anecdote, but as a real, observable phenomenon. When your attention is focused, coherent, and intentional, the universe starts offering cues, nudges, and opportunities that would have been invisible in the chaos of scattered thoughts. People suddenly appear at the right time, solutions reveal themselves, and doors open without the dramatic struggle most of us are accustomed to. The quantum principle here is simple. Reality responds to focused observation. Coherence generates possibility. Presence collapses potential into actual experience. You might be thinking, okay, that sounds poetic, but what does this actually mean for me tomorrow morning? Here's the actionable part. Begin with your awareness. Each day, spend 5 minutes noticing where your mind tends to wander into worry, resentment, or unhelpful repetition. Then gently redirect it toward what feels expansive, creative, or alive. Track small outcomes, coincidences, unexpected opportunities, moments of insight. Over time, you start to see that you are no longer merely reacting to events. You are participating in them. You are, in a subtle but real way, shaping your own life. And here's a little secret most people miss. The universe doesn't reward perfection. It responds to clarity and coherence. You don't need to be enlightened, disciplined, or extraordinary. You just need to notice, pay attention, and align your focus. That is enough to trigger the subtle currents of synchronicity and meaningful change. Think of it like tuning an old radio. Once you find the right frequency, the music was there all along, but before that, it just sounded like static. If you begin practicing this consciously, even in small ways, life starts to shift. Your relationships deepen because you notice opportunities for empathy and connection. Your work flows with unexpected inspiration. Your sense of well-being expands because you are no longer trapped in the constant loop of reactive thinking. You are participating with the fabric of reality rather than bouncing helplessly off it. And here's the kicker. You don't need special powers or esoteric knowledge. All it takes is disciplined attention and openness to the hints the universe already gives you. So today, right now, take this moment as your invitation. Notice something small that feels significant, something that catches your attention and sparks curiosity. Observe it. Reflect on it. Let your mind linger there long enough to see the patterns, to see how reality responds when you are truly present. That is the first step toward becoming the conscious creator you always were meant to be, but maybe never realized. And if you practice this consistently, even for a few weeks, you'll start to notice a new rhythm in your life, a subtle orchestration that feels both miraculous and utterly logical, like a secret code you suddenly understand because you were finally paying attention. And before we move further, if you've been enjoying this journey, consider subscribing. Not because it's a chore, but because the path ahead gets even stranger, even more fascinating, and frankly, a little mind-bending. There's more hidden in the folds of reality than most people ever glimpse, and you'll want to see it all unfold. Have you ever noticed how some moments feel almost orchestrated, as if the universe is gently nudging you in a particular direction? Those moments you once shrugged off as coincidence, meeting someone unexpectedly, a sudden insight at the perfect moment, even a problem solving itself, are not accidents. They are signs of something far more intricate, a conversation happening between your consciousness and the world around you. It's like reality is whispering, pay attention, and when you do, it answers in ways that feel uncanny, but are surprisingly logical once you begin to see the pattern. To understand this, we have to step back into the realm of quantum physics. Earlier, we talked about the double-slit experiment, the particles that behave differently when observed. But there's more. Consider entanglement, a phenomenon that Einstein once called spooky action at a distance. Two particles, separated by light years, can remain connected in such a way that a change in one instantaneously influences the other. It's as if the universe has a backstage network, an invisible thread weaving everything together. And if particles can communicate across vast distances, why wouldn't the same principle apply to the moments and experiences of your life? Your thoughts, intentions, and observations may be more entangled with reality than you think. Now here's where most people get lost. They hear terms like wave function or quantum entanglement and assume this is all abstract science with no relevance to their day-to-day life. But the practical lesson is simple. Your focus and attention are the forces that collapse possibilities into actual outcomes. Every time you consciously observe, choose, or notice something, you are shaping the probabilities of your reality. Think of it as a sculptor with clay. The clay already exists in a formless state of infinite possibilities, and your awareness is the hand that molds it into something tangible. So, how do you take this from theory into practice without falling into wishful thinking or self-delusion? It starts with awareness, but not just passive awareness. I'm talking about deliberate, structured attention. For example, start a daily habit of observing patterns in your life. Pay attention to when things magically align, those coincidences that used to feel random. Don't just note them, analyze them. Ask yourself, what was I focused on at this moment? What choices led me here? By tracking these interactions between attention and outcome, you begin to map the subtle currents of synchronicity that have always been there, invisible until now. Here's a practical exercise. Pick one area of your life that feels stuck, your career, creativity, relationships, or health. For 1 week, dedicate intentional attention to that area every morning. Before starting your day, take a minute to observe what's alive in that part of your life. Don't try to force outcomes. Just notice what feels expansive, what ideas or opportunities naturally rise to the surface. Record small insights, coincidences, or nudges you encounter. You'll begin to see that even without taking dramatic action, simply observing with intention starts to shift the probabilities of reality in your favor. And yes, this sounds deceptively simple, but simplicity is the point. The universe responds to clarity and coherence, not frantic effort. In fact, the more you try to force outcomes, the more resistance you encounter. Life is not about bulldozing your way to your desires. It's about noticing where energy flows naturally and moving in alignment with it. Think of it as surfing. You don't make the wave, you ride it. You catch the subtle hints, the momentum, the alignment, and then you move with it instead of against it. The fascinating part is that these quantum principles don't just apply to external events. They affect your inner world as well. Your emotions, your beliefs, and even your body's health respond to the coherence of your attention. Studies in neuroscience and epigenetics show that focused attention and sustained positive intention can actually influence gene expression, neural pathways, and hormonal balance. In other words, your consciousness isn't just shaping events outside, it's subtly reshaping the inner landscape of your mind and body. Let's tie this to something relatable. Imagine you're trying to improve your health. Most people approach it by sheer willpower, diet, exercise, routines, without addressing the mental patterns underneath. But if you start observing your attention and emotions around health, noticing when your thoughts align with vitality versus self-sabotage, you create a subtle feedback loop. Every choice you make, each glass of water, each step you take, each thought you cultivate, collapses the possibilities of a healthier reality into actual experience. Quantum physics is giving you the blueprint for what traditional advice calls motivation, but far deeper and more effective, because it operates at the level of reality itself. And here's the humor in all this. It's not about becoming perfect or enlightened overnight. Life is messy, unpredictable, and hilarious. There will be days when your intentions feel like they're bouncing off walls. That's part of the process. The universe has a sense of humor, and the errors are often the course corrections that guide you toward more coherent alignment. Think of it like learning to dance in a room full of shifting furniture. You stumble, you laugh, and eventually, you find the rhythm that works. The next step is learning to act without attachment to outcome. This is where many people stumble. They notice synchronicities, they try to force results, and frustration creeps in. Quantum principles show us that conscious observation guides reality, but forcing, grasping, or panicking disrupts the flow. The skill is to observe, to focus, to intend, and then allow reality to respond in its own time and way. It's a balance between presence and patience, between action and surrender. One practical method to cultivate this is what some call probability mapping. Take a decision you're facing and outline the possible outcomes. Don't stop at logic. Notice how each option feels in your body, in your intuition, in the subtle emotional landscape of your attention. Which choice resonates with coherence? Which feels fragmented, anxious, or tense? Quantum theory suggests that coherence, the alignment between mind, emotion, and observation, collapses probability toward favorable outcomes. In simpler terms, your clarity and presence help reality organize itself in ways that benefit you. By now, you might be wondering if all of this sounds a bit too mystical or abstract. But here's the grounding. Every actionable insight, every small shift in attention, every deliberate observation has a measurable effect on your life. It's not a magic trick. It's physics, biology, and psychology wrapped together in a way that is practical, observable, and repeatable. If you commit to even 10 minutes a day of conscious observation and reflection, you start to see real results. Relationships improve, opportunities emerge, creativity flows, and even small challenges feel easier to navigate. And the beautiful part is that this is cumulative. Each day of attention builds momentum. Each act of coherence strengthens your influence on reality. And over time, what once felt random or frustrating transforms into a pattern that feels like guidance, purpose, even magic. You become a participant in your life rather than a passive observer. You start noticing the hidden choreography of events, the subtle signals that have always been present, and the uncanny ways that the universe responds when you actually pay attention. So, as we move further along this journey, I want you to keep one thing in mind. Conscious creation is not about control. It's about noticing, aligning, and participating. The universe is generous, responsive, and intelligent, but it responds best when you are coherent, aware, and deliberate. Think of your mind as a lens focusing sunlight, too scattered, and the light warms nothing, focused, and you can ignite possibility. And before we continue, a small invitation. If this exploration has sparked curiosity, if the idea that reality is responsive intrigues you, subscribing is more than a click. It's a small act of alignment with the journey ahead. There's more waiting, deeper mysteries, subtle tools, and practical exercises that will help you navigate this quantum dance with clarity, humor, and confidence. In the next phase, we'll dive into the hidden patterns that govern our lives, the subtle signals that mainstream thinking dismisses, and the ways you can intentionally navigate them. We'll explore the techniques that turn observation into action, synchronicity into strategy, and insight into tangible transformation. By the end of this journey, you won't just understand that reality responds to your consciousness. You'll have the tools to consciously participate in its unfolding. And if you think that sounds ambitious, let me tell you, reality is already responding to you, whether you notice it or not. The question is, will you step into the role of the conscious observer, or continue to let life happen around you while you shuffle in the background? The choice, as subtle and profound as it is, begins the moment you decide to pay attention. By now, you've seen glimpses of the hidden currents that ripple beneath the surface of your life. The subtle nudges, the unexpected alignments, the uncanny coincidences that hint at a deeper order. But here's the secret most people never grasp. These currents are not just around you, they are within you. Every thought, every feeling, every moment of attention is an interaction with the fabric of reality itself. The universe isn't waiting somewhere out there, it's responding to you in real time, and the moment you step into conscious awareness, You begin to participate in a dance that has been quietly unfolding your entire life. This is where the power and the responsibility of conscious creation comes into sharp focus. You realize that the problems that once seemed insurmountable, the frustration of stalled projects, the stress in relationships, and even the fear of missed opportunities, are all signals pointing to where your attention is fragmented, scattered, or misaligned. Quantum physics, ancient wisdom, and neuroscience all converge here. Coherence matters. When your mind, heart, and actions are aligned, reality responds. When they are disjointed, life feels chaotic, random, and unmanageable. But what does alignment actually look like? It's not a mystical state reserved for gurus. Alignment is noticing where you are in tension, where your thoughts are fragmented, where your energy feels stuck. Then, with deliberate observation, you allow coherence to emerge. You focus on what resonates, what expands, and what feels in harmony with your values and intentions. It's about noticing your inner patterns as much as external opportunities, because the outer world is an echo of the inner one. And here's a crucial insight: synchronicity, the experience of meaningful coincidences, is not a random trick of luck. It's the signal of alignment in motion. When your attention is coherent, when your intention is clear, the universe begins responding in ways that can feel miraculous. A stranger offers help just when you need it, an idea lands in your mind fully formed, or a project resolves effortlessly. These moments are not magic in the whimsical sense. They are the natural outcome of focused consciousness interacting with reality. At this stage, it becomes practical. You can start to experiment with your life in very real ways. One simple technique is to identify one intention each day. Don't overload your mind with 10 goals, 10 worries, or 10 outcomes. Just one. Hold it clearly in your attention. Notice any signs, coincidences, or opportunities that arise. Reflect on how your thoughts and actions align or misalign with that intention. Over days and weeks, this practice trains your consciousness to notice patterns, collapse probabilities into favorable outcomes, and participate actively in the unfolding of your own life. And while you're experimenting, humor is essential. Reality is not a rigid system that punishes mistakes. It has a sense of rhythm, timing, and even playful irony. You'll stumble, you'll misinterpret signals, and yes, you'll face resistance. Laugh at it, take notes, and adjust. The universe is teaching, not scolding, and this gentle interplay is the classroom for conscious creation. This is where the transformation begins. When you consistently practice focused observation, coherent intention, and non-attached action, life starts to shift in noticeable ways. Relationships deepen because you notice nuances and opportunities for empathy that previously went unseen. Opportunities flow because your attention aligns with emerging possibilities. Health, creativity, and even finances respond to the coherence you cultivate internally. It's not instantaneous in every case, but the directionality of change becomes undeniable. You start moving from reactive survival into proactive creation. And the beauty of it is that this transformation extends to identity itself. You begin to see yourself not as a passive participant in a chaotic world, but as a conscious observer, a co-creator of experience. You recognize that external circumstances are not punishments or rewards. They are mirrors of attention, reflection points for alignment, and invitations to engage more consciously. In this shift, victimhood dissolves, and empowerment becomes your default state. You are no longer subject to circumstance. You are navigating a world that responds to the clarity and coherence you bring to it. From here, life takes on a different rhythm. You notice the interplay of choice and chance, intention and timing, observation and manifestation. You begin to experience what ancient sages called flow, what modern psychologists call alignment, and what quantum physics describes as the collapse of possibility into presence. This is the state where creativity thrives, where insight emerges effortlessly, and where synchronicity is no longer rare. It becomes a natural part of how life unfolds. So if you take one lesson from this journey, let it be this: reality is not something that happens to you. It is something you participate in. Every thought, every focus, Every deliberate act of observation carries weight. Each moment is a crossroads where attention meets possibility. The more conscious and coherent your engagement, the more reality organizes itself to reflect that focus. And yes, it takes practice, patience, and humor, because the universe is mischievous in its timing. But this is not a limitation, it is the very texture of creation itself. As you carry this awareness forward, consider it an invitation rather than a prescription. Experiment with attention. Notice the flow of synchronicity in your life. Observe your inner patterns, refine your coherence, and allow reality to respond. Each step you take is a conversation with the universe, each observation a gentle collapse of probability into the life you wish to inhabit. Over time, you'll see how subtle shifts in consciousness ripple outward, transforming not just your experiences, but the very way you perceive yourself in the world. And here, in this quiet reflection, there is a profound sense of relief. You realize that life is not a series of random battles or endless frustrations. It is a conversation, an intricate interplay between awareness and existence. You are both observer and participant, sculptor and clay, lighthouse and sea. Every moment carries potential, every thought is meaningful, and every intention creates echoes in the unfolding tapestry of reality. So breathe. Feel the rhythm of your own attention. Notice the currents of opportunity that have always surrounded you, waiting for acknowledgement. Let the subtle dance of synchronicity guide you, and trust that by stepping into conscious observation, by aligning your focus, by collapsing possibility into presence, you are exactly where you need to be. And in that space, everything changes. Not because the world has suddenly become predictable, but because you have become present, coherent, and awake to its infinite possibilities. Life no longer happens to you, it flows through you, and in that flow you are home.